Hi, this is J.P. Fenyo, the original New York City free advice man, and this is the very first edition of Like It Is, where I tell you what I think about the issues that really matter. Today is also in Washington, D.C., the day when our president, President Barack Obama, tells the nation what he thinks about the State of the Union in his State of the Union address. And as you probably can imagine, he's going to try to do his very, very best to tell the other side of the aisle and to tell his own people that we need to tone down the rhetoric and we need to think about what we're saying, because some of the things we're saying can be very harmful and cause certain people to do very nasty things, very sick things. And, I wish President Obama and Vice President Biden the very best in their efforts to try to tone down the rhetoric, but I'm not very optimistic. Let's be honest about things. They say good fences make good neighbors. And I think that really does apply today in our United States of America. I've been thinking about this for a while, and I've even written a couple of blogs about this. And basically, I've come to the conclusion that we are not really entirely the United States of America. We have developed at least two large separate United States of America over time. And there are probably a couple of other smaller Americas within the concept of the United States of America. Basically, we have on the one side the country mice, and on our side we have the city mice. That is to say, the conservatives, the atomic traditional family unit type people who live out there in the countryside, and the people in the city who, as city life goes, may or may not have atomic type families, may not have a traditional mom and pop type of situation, and that's fine. The fact of the matter is that there's been too much crossover. There was a time when people who were from the countryside pretty much, unless they happened to be born with a city, mind, stayed in the countryside and did not interfere in the life of the city folk. And there was a time when the city people did not go out to the countryside and start messing up with what people felt like was the right way to live in the countryside. Now, I'm not suggesting that the United States of America should break up. That would be treason. I've sworn allegiance to the United States of America, to the Constitution, and I still adhere to that. But what I'm about to suggest is something that is a solution that I think should be considered because it's realistic, it's practicable, that is to say it's practical and it's possible to do, and it makes sense. Switzerland has a very, very wise internal political reality. There are basically three major types of Swiss. There are the Italo-Swiss, the German-Swiss, and the Franco-Swiss. And in order to get along in the same one little country, they established cantons. Cantons are like, separate regions that have a lot of autonomy. Well, we need to do the same thing in the United States of America. Because I'm really tired, fed up, sick of having people from the countryside, the country mice, coming into the city and telling me how to live my life in the city or in the suburb. And I think that the idea of more autonomy for people of the conservative side of politics in their own rightful place in the countryside and smaller towns of America, and maybe a few of the larger cities where they happen to be historically predominant, is a wise thing. Let them have their autonomy there, and let them stay out of the local politics that we have in our cities. We need to reconstruct the United States of America. We don't need a divorce. We don't want to divorce the conservatives, the so-called Republicans, the pseudo-Republicans, the few Republicans that exist, the conservatives, Tea Party people. We don't need a divorce, but we need a separation. this family is not getting along. You know, you guys on the other side of the aisle, neocons and whatnot, and post-neocons, paleocons, whatever that means, you guys are just, keep on putting your nose into the affairs of people who live in the cities. And you've moved into our cities and ruined them, wrecked them. You take New York City, for example. I love New York City, at least the New York City that I knew in the 80s, and the New York City that I understood that existed for much of the 20th and 19th century. And New York City is still a wonderful place, but it's a far cry from what it used to be before you guys from the country, you country mice, came and messed up things for us city mice. So my advice to the President of the United States and Vice President of the United States is to think about it. If they don't accept your, olive branch, which I think they won't, then maybe it's time that we increase the amount of autonomy that the two great Americas within the United States of America have. So again, I'm not suggesting a splitting of the country. Definitely I don't approve of that. The Civil War was not a good thing. It's no longer North versus South. It's really about what it has really always been about. People who from the countryside, country mice, with the few that are born there who really are not, their souls are not from there. There are people born in the countryside who find out that they are, let's say, bisexual, lesbian, gay, whatever. Maybe they're just, kinky liberals, or maybe they're not kinky liberals. Maybe they just love living in cities and they respect the rights. They respect the rights of people who are different, who are born different, or who have a different way of living their lives. And those people are city people, and they can be born in the country. And we're not talking about borders or anything. Yeah, there will be a separation in politics, in terms of local politics. But there won't be any actual physical borders preventing people from the country coming to the city, and vice versa for people who wanted from the city to visit the country. There won't be anything stopping you. It'll be like the same old United States we've had so far. But the idea would be basically that on local political issues, people in predominantly conservative, old-fashioned, traditional ways of life, basically they get to vote amongst their variety of different conservatives rather than having to risk voting for somebody who has policies that they will end up not agreeing with. And vice versa. I don't want these conservative people in my cities. City-states, for the most part, were meant to be places where artists, intellectuals, creative-minded people, geniuses, autodidacts like me, can have a place to live in relative peace. And you know who's taking advantage of this great division throughout millennia between the city mice and the country mice? Criminals! Yes, mobsters, lobsters, whatever you want to call them, criminals are exploiting the divisions of society, whether it's racial divisions, religious divisions, ethnic divisions, political divisions, whatever it may be, age discrimination, all kinds of issues are used and exploited and abused by people who have only one thing in mind: how to profit off the suffering of other people. And a lot of people in the conservative side of politics are very selfish. They're, interested in their own family interest. They're, basically they're kind of like, little family clans, tribes. And they're not interested in the rights of others, of other individuals. They really don't have a clue what the founders of our great country had in mind. So, my free advice to you, Mr. President, my President Obama, and Vice President Biden, is tell them on the other side of the aisle, let's try to make things work. But when you find out that it ain't gonna happen, that they are not gonna stop, that the Glenn Becks, the Ann Coulter, whatever, these people, whoever they are, the Sarah Palins, they're not gonna stop causing trouble for us liberals and non-conservatives. Now you can say, what about the conservative city type? Yeah, but the conservative city type person the real ones, are tolerant and respectful of the rights of the majority of people who live in cities, of the creative artists, of the intellectuals, and they don't try to impose their politics on us. Again, the city mice believe in unity and diversity. That is the city mice way of life. Unity in diversity. For the most part, that applies to the suburbs too. But the country mouse does not accept unity and diversity. Let's just face the facts. They're not interested in unity and diversity. So we need to end it. We need to change the way America is, make it stronger internally by having less of those divisions become a source of conflict as they have. In order for us to be stronger internationally, we need to compromise. We need to work with the city mice and the country mice together. We need to compromise. We need to work together to have a common foreign policy. That's not going to be easy either, because a lot of the conservative side don't mind profiting off conflict elsewhere in the world. And the solution for that is one thing, that on the federal level, the President of the United States will still get to have the final call about where our foreign policy stands. Now, the country might say, well, that's not fair. We'd like to have our own president decide our own foreign policy so that we can have things our way. Well, to be quite honest to you, if you manage to get us city folk to vote for somebody of your mindset to run the United States foreign policy, well, so be it. On a foreign policy level, unfortunately, we cannot separate. We definitely cannot divorce. We cannot cantonize America. But on the domestic level, we need to create something of a Switzerland out of the United States. Otherwise, our enemies, domestic and foreign, are going to continue to weaken our United States of America. That's my free advice, like it is. Signing off, the Free Advice Man.